Um, I so appreciate that. I never remember to stop for the recording in process pause. I need to build that in. Folks, hi and welcome to the UPCEA Annual Conference REACH Presenter Briefing. My name is Amy Heitzman. I'm the Deputy CEO and Chief Learning Officer for UPCEA, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. We'll be recording this session, so for those who can't make it, we'll be popping this onto a page on the REACH website soon under a tab that will usually entitle something like 4 presenters, and we'll put resources from today as well as today's recording in there. The goal for today, oh, and thank you, Jacqueline, for popping the agenda into the chat. This is guiding our conversation today. It won't take maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes at max for us to walk through some of the things that are going to be really important for the presenters for REACH to keep in mind as you prepare. As each of you know, you are accepted for a concurrent session. These are 30 minutes of pre-recorded content, which allows the best parts of content, which is captured, no surprises, but also allows it to be paired with real-time live Q&A and chat with the presenters in the platform. And we'll talk a bit more about that as well. So best of both worlds. We've shared with this group something called protocols. It's a document that's linked on our agenda. We can also resend that as you need it, and it will be on the 4 presenters resource page shortly. And on that document are all the tips and things to know about, such as the slide template, best practices for recapture and for recording, other sorts of odds and ends, and then what to do when you've made your recording. We ask that the sessions be just 30 minutes in total. It doesn't mean that your content isn't worth more time, but in a virtual setting, 30 minutes can sometimes really be at the maximum that attention spans will begin to wane. So we ask for you to be patient with the 30 minutes. We also ask that you use only the slide template that we've provided. In this way, it will be accessible for closed captioning. And I ask you to take a note of the deadline of April the 15th for sending us your captured content. All of this is noted in the protocols, which the talented Jacqueline has popped again into the agenda. So the agenda into the chat. I ran through that rather quickly, but I think as each of us is can be expected, we're getting really good at the virtual presentation world. And so I don't want to gloss over things, but let me pause here before I turn it over to my colleagues to talk more about some of the nuts and bolts, such as the platform itself. Questions about recording the content, slide template? All right, fantastic. I'm going to continue to move us down the agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Jordan.
I'm sorry. Did you ask if there was a question regarding the recording and the template? I have a question with regards to that. We received both templates. We received the green and white template for the slides, and we received the blue purple background that I see a lot of you have for if someone is going to be speaking. So is it possible to merge those two things together, or does the recording that someone does have to be at the same time that the slide is on the screen?
That is an excellent question that I think I will turn to my colleague, Jordan, to help.
Yeah, so Cheryl, let me just make sure I'm clear. So what we recommend is using something like Zoom to capture your pre-recorded session. So like we kind of are in this room now, you'll share your screen, or one of your presenters will share their screen. You'll all be kind of there at that time that you're recording. Once you press record, there are certain ways and features in Zoom that it'll kind of overlay your screenshot or the active speaker's screenshot over the slides as you present. And then once that recording is complete, you'll take that and upload it to our Google Drive. And then we'll put that into our virtual platform.
Okay, and so then are you recommending, because I believe I read in the email that came out that we could either record it in Zoom or in WebEx. You're recommending now that we do it in Zoom?
Either one, whatever you're most comfortable with. We just have offered Zoom because it's a free option that allows for 40 minutes of recording. So for users that don't have paid licenses to other options, that's just kind of the recommended way, we'd say.
Okay.
And Cheryl, if I may, this is Jim Miller from the same institution, from GW College of Professional Studies. I think for clarification, we want to make sure you know that we will have not only in our pre-recorded session, we will have pre-recorded speakers and snippets from faculty and staff who cannot be live at the time that we do our recording. So I think that may be where the confusion lies. And we're going to embed those in our slide presentation, and that should translate over into our soundbite. So we'll double check that before we send it to you. But yeah, I think that's the question. Does everyone physically have to be there at the time we record it? Yes, except for the pre-recorded snippets. I got that.
Yeah, and so there's, whenever you capture the 30-minute presentation prior to that April 15th deadline, whatever, like you said, if you have folks that aren't going to be there at that time, we have seen sometimes where, you create a recording of someone else, embed that into your slides. Correct. So that at that point you could say, click the button. Exactly. And have them, go live at that point, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're planning on doing. And okay. I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Yakut, I can see that you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a question. So on the day of the show, the pre-recorded portion will be played first, right? And then the presenters are going to be active in the chat, receiving, answering questions and whatnot. Yeah. So do you anticipate those presenters to also have their cameras on while no, right? So
no. So yeah,
okay.
It might be a good time. I was just about to jump into the platform and kind of show you what it looks like. So what happens is you'll capture your presentation as outlined in the protocols, no longer than 30 minutes, provide that in the Google Drive to Jackie. Then about a week before the event, what will happen, and I'll share my screen now, is you'll get an email, and that email will be a calendar invite that will look something like this. That email or that calendar invite has a hot link or a magic link that will take you to your My Talks area in the platform. So we use the Excel events platform, which will look like this once you click into the session or into your link. And this brings you to the My Talks area on your screen. So you can see here, I have a couple sessions that I'm lined up with. The most recent one that I set for today started 10 minutes ago at 3 p.m. The system allows you to add documents. So if you have supporting documents or things that you'd like to add to your session, once you get that link, you'll be able to join in and add those even prior to the session. So here I have one set out kind of at the conference dates, May 3rd. I could add documents to this leading up to the event or even after the event if you'd like, or if you connect with somebody in the chat on something like that. So right now, like I said, we're kind of 10 minutes past the session. And what you'll see is that when you upload your video, our staff will link that into the Excel events platform. It will be set at a certain time and date. When that time occurs, so at 3 p.m., the video will begin playing. So we ask that everyone, even though you've pre-recorded the content, that you're there live, and we ask you to do so to engage with people in the chat. So when I enter the session, you'll notice that the timestamp of 3 o'clock will now be, it's 3:11 here, at least Eastern time. And this video will be playing, and it will be 11 minutes into the video already. And so this video, as you can kind of see, has that pre-recorded content. We have some session presenters here via Zoom sharing their screen, and you have a chat for each of your sessions on the right-hand side. You have details on the bottom. This is where you also will find your documents and links that you've uploaded in advance. And so on the right-hand side, this is how you engage with the audience via a chat. You can type in here. You have the ability to kind of add emoji reactions to folks who are in, speaking or to you via the chat. You have the ability to kind of reply in a thread. So kind of making sure that it doesn't become a long thread throughout the whole chat. You can kind of make separate threads within there. Some of the other options that you have as presenters is engaging through polls. You can add polls from up here, an option, and you can do this in advance when you get access to that link as well. So it doesn't need to be during the event. You can set up your polls in advance. And then as you see here, I have one set up where I could launch this poll for attendees. And then you have, the responses here. Once that poll is submitted, attendees will be able to see that live if you'd like. But you also have the option when you add a poll, setting up a question. It can be single choice, multiple choice. Those are the only two options for the polling results. But then you can add, 3, 4, 5 answers more, and you can toggle whether or not you want to show those results to the users as well. Similarly, like you have in Zoom, there's the Q&A feature. So if attendees ask a question of you, they can send a question privately to you. They can send one publicly, but then a pop-up of like a new number 1 would appear up here. So we just ask you to kind of be keeping an eye on the Q&A and the chat during your live session as those attendees are watching that session go live. So I just want to pause there before we move on to a couple other options to see if there's any questions about that after we've kind of seen how it works in the system.
Jim Miller again from GW, just a real quick question. So this is obviously we're able to respond only via chat while the presentation is playing. When that's over, just to be clear, there will be a actual audio question and answer where we can hear them, they can hear us.
No, so it's all synchronous only through the text chat and the Q&A and polls. So your video will be off, attendees' video and audio will be off. You do have the ability in the platform through the people area if you want to connect to somebody one-on-one. There's the ability to do so via a chat or to set up a video appointment or call them. So those are options that we have in the system, but for the pre-recorded session, all of the kind of attention on the speakers will be done live through the text chat, and anything that's video based or through the webcam will be pre-recorded and uploaded into the video.
Right. But after that's done, during the Q&A period, we can hear each other and speak to each other like human beings, right?
No, so it's through this Q&A feature. So similar if you've been on kind of a Zoom webinar before, for the presenters, it's text only, and those text questions come in through the box, and then the speakers would reply through the chat to those attendees. It looks like Quinn, I think, or Kin.
Hi, yeah, this is Chin here. I'm from University of Utah, and then just I have a similar question to the one just asked about. It's about the session length of this pre-recorded sessions. Like, is it 30 minutes total, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then what if the recording is not quite 30 minutes? What the recording is 25 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on the needs, of each project. So would that 10 minutes or 5 minutes left be used for Q&A using the audio and stuff? Thank you.
Correct. So yeah, that would be 30 minutes is the max. If it's less time, that's fine. We do have some folks we've seen who do 25 minutes so that they can stay for the last 5 minutes that the session time allows for to just engage via that chat. We do limit it to 30 minutes though, because we have other sessions scheduled. So to not have attendees kind of be in a session room and then have to get to the next session room late and those sorts of things. And then at the end of those sessions, again, it would be through the text chat, Q&A, features. That's one thing that's also a little different than our in-person presentations, is that after your session, attendees will be able to access the recording. So while we ask you to be there during that 30-minute period of time, there may be attendees throughout the conference coming to your session, watching it for the first time, and may put a question or type in a response or even just give you some good feedback in the chat. So we do, ask as you're able to, over the course of the conference, just go back into your session and take a look and make sure that there's not any engagement that you may have missed.
Okay, got it. And then, so just to clarify, still after the recording, the video watching session, however much time left, there is only this text chat, this channel for communications. There's no audio. Correct. Or speaking. Okay, thank you.
Yep. It looks like Cecile, you had your hand raised.
Hi, yes. Hi, I'm Cecile Paskett, also at the University of Utah. I'm just wondering, are there any functionality differences between the Q&A panel and the chat panel that we should be aware of as presenters? Do they function differently? Do you respond to people differently in those two different panels?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's similar to if you've done a Zoom webinar before, the chat here, you know, anyone can type in the chat. Once a chat goes out, it appears automatically. The Q&A kind of creates that queue for you of, okay, this is a question. And then once I ask a question, I'll just type one in here. You know, you can send it privately, and that would mean that only the speakers marked on that session would be able to see that if I was an audience member. Or I could uncheck that and it would go to kind of the public chat. And you can see here how you have, once this is open now, you have 1 open question, 0 answered, and 0 dismissed. You as a person who's in the speaker, you know, notification area would see this and be able to either dismiss the question and type your question answer to them, because we don't have the live. It isn't a live event. Some events in the platform can be live, but this one is pre-recorded. So you type the answer, or if it's a extraneous question, dismiss it. And then once you do that, it will shift it over into the answered column, and that user will see their response in that question area as well.
Cool. Can I ask one follow-up question on the chat feature? Yep. Can you go back and open up that chat panel?
Yep.
What is backstage versus session?
Good answer, or good question. So backstage, it's not visible. You can see here to attendees. That's kind of like if you and your speakers want to chat back and forth, and you have some kind of private stuff that you just like to discuss in here that you don't want the session attendees to see, you can go into the backstage and type your messages back and forth to your session presenters. Cool. We don't usually see that used as often, but it is an option if you want to engage in that way with your session presenters.
Nice. It's a nice feature. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yakut?
So in my experience, these types of platforms create a little bit of a cognitive dissonance for folks because they're used to operating in Zoom, and then there's this additional platform that you need to pay attention to, especially for the attendees. So I'm thinking, but correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, while we're doing our recordings, it might be useful to remind people in that recording, please engage with chat on the platform. I don't know how to describe that thing. Or is there going to be a UPCEA staff that reminds that to people at the beginning of each session? Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we also encourage you to do when you get in here, because you're able to access the session beforehand. You'll be able to come in and like I said here, hello, welcome to today's session. We'll get started shortly. We encourage you and your presenters to try and engage with the attendees, because it is a little bit, sometimes you can come into a room and if you as a speaker or nobody chats in the chat box, it can feel like no one's there, even though there are people there and watching. So we do encourage you to come in and say, hey, welcome to today's session. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or the Q&A. You'll see also sometimes people will just kind of start asking questions and say, oh, I just heard you talk about this. Could you give me some more information about that? Then you'll, respond either in thread to them there or in that chat area. So that is a good thing to drop, some notes in here saying, I'm here, we're about to get started, or let us know as you have questions as you're listening through the presentation. So I also want to show you what it looks like if you come in here early. So this is for the future session. It'll have a countdown clock in here as well. So once it gets down to the kind of hours spot, you'll see the seconds start counting down. This is obviously far out, but you can still come in here. You can still drop, notes into the chat if you wanted to build those, and you can still add those documents in there as well. The only other things we'd encourage you to do as you get access is to go into your profile page. This will be able to, kind of give some more information about you, update your title if you need to, give some more information about what you might want to learn from others, areas of expertise, little things like that to make your profile more full. And then we also just want to show you that there's this lobby area. So while each session has its own chat, we also have a main event chat as well. So just be sure to be, keeping an eye on that. Sometimes folks also like to encourage folks to attend their sessions. So if you want to, chat with all conference attendees versus just those in your session, this is the place to do so. Other than that, you'll have main stage for our general sessions on the left side. Concurrent sessions, which are the sessions that you'll be a part of, will be listed here. You can come here and add things to your schedule and see more information about other sessions as well. And then this people area is where you'll be able to access other attendees at the conference and connect to them if you'd like. So that's just kind of a quick run through of those options in the platform. If we have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or just begin speaking as well. I do see there's some in the chat, so let me take a look here.
Jordan, we did have one question. How shall the presenters signal to staff if they have questions mid-presentation?
Good question. One thing that most staff will have somebody assigned to this main lobby chat, so in the main area, but we also will have a couple staff at certain points, jumping from room to room just to keep an eye on things, making sure that the video has started and that people aren't having access issues. You can also email our info@upcea.edu. That's just our main info box, but we're always keeping an eye on that throughout the event. And then you can also send messages to one of us if you see staff members like myself. While yours might have speaker, I have 2 profiles in here, but all the staff will have organizer after their name as well. So you can also send message to anyone that says organizer to, if you need help with that in the platform. Any other questions? And let's see, it's McSeal, it says sessions will start at the scheduled time automatically. Yes, that's correct. So like I said, I had this session that I was taking part in today that was uploaded. It went from 3 o'clock to 3:30. When we join into this session, it's already 25 minutes into the video because we're now 25 minutes past the hour. So the system automatically plays and anyone coming into the session while that session is live, it will begin X amount of minutes past that time so that everyone is synchronously in the chat at the same time. If there are problems with the videos we upload, yeah, we do a review of those videos. So if there's something wrong with the video that we need help with, we will certainly reach out. The presenters will not be showing their web cameras again, just during your presentation upload or recording. So the pre-recorded session that you'll be uploading for us to review by April 15th, that feel free to have your webcam on. As you can see here in this recording, these folks have their webcams on during the presentation and that's captured. But if I were, let's say, one of these individuals here right now, I don't have my webcam on for you. You can't see me, but I'll be engaging with you via the chat only. So text chat. The April 15th deadline is a final deadline for those submissions. And that gives us time to add subtitles, to check all the videos, to get them uploaded into the platform. So we do appreciate you sticking to that deadline. Any other questions? All right, great. I will stop sharing my screen and I believe pass it back to Amy.
Sure, folks, thanks so much. Those were great questions. I really appreciate that. Sometimes we know we've done this long enough that we think we've hit everything and yet we don't. So thank you for that. I appreciate your time and your great probing questions. Let me move us down the agenda ever so slightly. We have a few resources here, but one of the best things that I have found in terms of peer-to-peer learning and mentoring is to have great presenters share their tricks of the trade and their tips. And so joining us here today, who's already posed some great questions, is Yakut, who has presented many, many times in the virtual setting, sometimes within UPCEA, but in others as well. And so Yakut, if you will just share with us some of the things that you've learned in this new normal that can help others as we aspire to reach.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know if I know anything that folks already haven't discovered themselves, but thank you for the opportunity. So one thing I think I'm going to start by saying is there are so many of these platforms. I think one thing that I do is don't wait until your session to join the platform and figure things out. And of course, if you're the very first session, you're out of luck there. But I always make sure that I go and discover things while other sessions are taking place, because things can get really confusing. There's definitely a learning curve there. Several things that I want to say in terms of pre-recordings. Maybe I'm a little, I'm not a perfectionist, but I always end up spending at least 5 times of what the actual recording is. So, even for shorter recordings, I end up recording things 3 to 5 times. So just, arrange your time accordingly, and deadline is coming up on the 15th. The other thing I want to tell folks is if you have multiple presenters in your session, use it to your advantage and keep it conversational rather than, separating or allocating that half an hour, like, 3 10-minute blocks. If there is a way for folks to keep changing the speaker so that folks find something to pay attention to and things don't get monotonous. One thing that I advise folks to do in the chat, so the recording, right? You know what took place in the recording. You can say things like, controversial comment is coming up, so that, prepare people to expect something that might happen pretty soon. And then one other thing I do is create your script before you record. And you can go off script, of course, and it gives a little bit of flavor to what you're saying, but place it close to the camera and keep your gaze at the camera to the extent that you can, and make your window where your script is there as small as possible, as close to the camera as possible, so that your eye does not track the text, and you still look like you're talking to people. So I'll leave it at that, Amy. I think people may have already heard these, so hope it's useful.
Thank you. It's always nice to put sort of a personal spin on what it is we're about to do. And this is important work. It's not designed to be rocket surgery. I love the notion about not only the controversial comment coming up, but the perfectionist. Sometimes the best content is the stuff that is pre-recorded, because as we joke, it is not created in the escalator going down to the session room on the day of the presentation. I'm just going to throw that out there. So thank you so much, folks. We've got a whole bunch of other resources that I invite you to take a look at offline. Our time is dwindling. I did not think we'd have so many meaty questions, and so we're getting to time, and I want to be respectful of those who are on this call with us today. From Sarah Wharton, who has a background in design, she's a member, I want to say Indiana, and I don't have that properly in my head. She created a video for us to showcase what it was that she did from a design perspective that earned her best in show in her presentation just a year or two ago. So I invite you to take a quick look at that. She's such a gem. And there are also other tips that we have in here. I think some of us have mentioned when you're chatting with folks in your session, you might tag them their names. And so just as I think a few of us have done here in the chat, identify the folks and call them out that have made really exciting comments, and help to identify those and ask prompts throughout. Maybe you might have 3 or 4 prompts ready to go at a couple different minute marks. And I definitely am going to use the controversial comment coming up, and I'm going to cite you. Are there any, as we're winding down, we've got a few notes in here. Reaches in Eastern time. We have a registration deadline coming up as well. Please holler if you have questions. Are there other questions that might remain that would be for the good of the order that folks on today's call would like to pose before we close out our briefing? Oh, and fantastic. And Yakut has generously offered her email address in the chat. I so appreciate your gifts of time and talent. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention today. A recording of this session, as well as many of the resources that we mentioned, will soon be on the REACH site in a tab entitled For Presenters. Don't hesitate to reach out to any of the folks that have at upcea.edu or Yakut on today's webinar if you have questions, and we look forward to seeing you virtually and connecting with you via REACH. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.